Hello, I'm Jeff Barnes, Chief Development Officer for Pinkard Construction. I want to thank you all for attending this first in a series of interviews aimed at creating and arming a senior think tank. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Jill Vitale-Awesome. Jill serves as President and CEO of the Eden Alternative, an international nonprofit focused on creating a world that celebrates aging and human potential. Prior to joining the Eden Alternative, Jill spent 20 years leading nursing homes, assisted living, and life plan communities. She is a licensed nursing home administrator and a reframing aging facilitator. Jill is the author of Disrupting the Status Quo of Senior Living, a Mind Shift, and speaks internationally on topics including ageism, leadership, and culture change. And again, Jill, thank you so much for being here. COVID has had a significant impact on our aging community and our aging environment, and continues to. And so we're very much interested in hearing what you have learned over these past many months about what's really happening with our seniors and our senior community.
Well, it's interesting. One of the first things that I think needs to be addressed is that while the common narrative is that everybody over a certain age is experiencing the same thing in the same way, right? If you're over the age of 60 or 70, you are vulnerable, you are at risk. And that's the story that's being told everywhere. And it's true, right? People are more at risk, but people are experiencing this situation in many, many different ways. There are a lot of people who are isolated, right? And we've always known that isolation is deadly. And so that is a huge risk factor right now for people. We also, there's some interesting things happening though. There was a recent Pew research study that found that older people are having less anxiety during this time than younger people, right? And we also are hearing things. There was an article from Denmark that people living in nursing homes there are actually experiencing increased well-being, which is not all the things that you would expect. And so they're sleeping better. They're feeling like this is more like home because I don't have all these different people in and out of my home. So it's really just important to understand that there's a range of experiences, because that's what we kind of do in our society is we stereotype and we lump everybody together in having the same experience. So incredible amount of challenge going on and pain that people are experiencing. But then there are also people who are experiencing this in a different sort of way. I think the big challenge that is happening, no matter what the level of living is, what the environment is there's this big push and pull between quality of life and safety. And rightly so, we want to protect older people. And we're also seeing that some of that protection, it's kind of like if I were to wrap you up in bubble wrap and keep you totally safe, you'd be suffocated, right? And so there's that kind of interesting thing that's really happening, I think, on a personal level for people, what makes a life worth living, and also on an organizational level, because there's so much responsibility to keep COVID out of these communities.
So am I hearing there's maybe, most likely, but a gap between the residents, the aging group, their families, and the owners and the operators and caregivers in these communities. Is that fair, or is it just a lack of understanding?
I'll tell you what we're seeing is that organizations that have really empowered cultures, what we call a person-directed culture, where the resident, the elder, is really in charge of their own lives and is part of deciding what happens in the community, and also team members are empowered, they're getting through this better. Because, none of us want to be told what we can do, right? I mean, we don't like people telling us we can do this and we can't do that because of our health. And in communities where it's a true community and residents and team members are part of the discussions and figuring out the right way to move ahead, people experience this in a better way. because you don't end up feeling like you're in a prison, which is some of what we hear sometimes from communities.
Sure.
So
that makes sense
the
to me.
better the foundational culture was going into this, the better they are getting through this.
And coming out of it on the other
And
side.
coming out of it on the other side.
Do you feel families are by and large supportive of their aging parents in wanting to promote being a part of what it's going to look like and feel like in the future and behave?
I think for families, and I'm a family member, my parents live in a community, there's again that push and pull, where I want to keep my parents safe. And then my parents sometimes say, you know what, a life worth living involves some risk. And so again, I think family members, especially adult children, have a really hard time because my parents call me a helicopter daughter sometimes because I want to keep them safe and keep them well. And if you're not looking at overall well-being and quality of life as part of that, it can be detrimental to people.
I suppose there has to be just a variety of emotions and thinking and, of course, opinions, naturally, about what should be done and what the future looks like and the quality of care and whether or not, you can't leave this space sort of attitude and mentality. There has to be just a massive variety of opinions about that. For me, I just don't. Seems like such a daunting task to sort through it all. The right answer isn't clear. And this is such a complex situation that there isn't one right answer. And that's why I think when you get people involved, as a leader, you don't know all the answers right now. This is unprecedented. And so the more we can call upon the people who has the most life experience in a senior living community. Sure.
Right? It's the people that live there. And that's the other thing that we're finding too is when we stop making assumptions and when we stop saying, here's all the things that we're going to do for you to keep you safe, and we ask people to be part of the solution and figure things out, the people that we're supporting, the older people, have more life experience than we do, right? I've got 50 years of life experience. Imagine adding on another 25 years or 30 years or 40 years. And so what we are hearing and finding is that older people are helping team members get through this because they have perspective of having lived through really hard times. The polio outbreak, going through really, really challenging times economically. And you just can't get that perspective without a long life. And I think we miss out on that a lot, with bringing those voices to the table.
I could really see that being the case. I think oftentimes our elderly, maybe not so much now, but in years past, lose their identities when they move away from their homes and they move into a community. But I've seen efforts over the last few years to help bring those identities back to those folks because they were this person for most of their life. And all of a sudden now their identities are gone. And that seems to me that has to continue to be a big component of quality of life in the future. I think that has to be.
I think one of the things that's really important is, one of the very common ways that we address and approach senior living is through customer service, hospitality. Come here, have a carefree lifestyle, and we'll do everything for you. And when we do that, when we turn people from citizens into consumers, we create helplessness.
Oh.
Right? And we know that we need purpose. There's a lot of research that shows we need meaningful purpose in our lives to live a long and healthy life. And so the more we can promote people finding what that purpose is and being known, like, Jeff, if you lived in a community, here's what your background is, here's what you love to do, here's what you want to learn next, and you having an impact on the world and other people will help you live a longer and healthier life. So it's kind of interesting, that framework that we've used for all these years, there's really no research to back it up. And we need to be thinking about something different, which is individualized and you not just be a recipient of care, but making a difference and giving back to people.
Well, and doing, not necessarily doing the same thing, certainly, and we've all heard this, expecting different results into the future. And I know that you have been, at the forefront of this for many years, and I think it's wonderful. I have to believe that coming out of this, we're going to see a lot of changes, improving the quality of infection control, along with which incorporates air quality, virtually everything, air quality, circulation, making decisions about whether or not to enlarge corridors or whatever, to help keep distancing. There's probably an endless supply of things to tackle when it comes to.
Well, and I think the more that building design and HVAC and all those things can support infection control so that people can live as normal life as possible, that is the ideal situation, right? Because if you don't have that right infrastructure, that's when people have to really adapt their lifestyle more and more. So the more we can do to create buildings that support life while, promoting infection control, that's the way to go, I think.
Well, yeah, and along with that, creating those communities and have that affordability happen at all levels, I can see that being a challenge and something well worth tackling.
Absolutely.
Especially as more people come into this space. As we have more people living longer and needing a place to go, that too will be a challenge that has to be faced and dealt with and resolved.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we're looking for this think tank, really to tackle. What other thoughts or ideas do you have that we haven't covered yet that you'd like to share with our group today?
I want to have people think a little bit about the fact that all of us who work in this field have grown up in an ageist society, very negative views of aging and a lot of false views of aging. And all of those things are in our heads as we're doing our jobs, as we're designing communities, as we're creating a future. And so we've got to really start to understand what those beliefs are in our own heads and learn how to start to counteract those, because they lead us to a place where we don't think older people have anything to give back and that people just exist to be taken care of when they reach a certain age, can't learn new things. So that has got to be the foundation for any meaningful change to happen.
That's really powerful. I'm glad you shared that, because I think that you're right. That is absolutely, that has to be the foundation, and that's really an important thing that we cannot lose sight of. So given all this, how do we as a community, total community, begin to put in place measures that will provide and create resilience, not only measures, but facilities and a mindset, create resilience against not only this pandemic, but future crises?
Well, there's a saying in the disability community that there should be nothing about us without us, right? That people should not be making decisions for the individuals that they're trying to take care of and protect. That the voices of older people need to be at the table.
Absolutely.
As a driving force in really looking at and asking some of those questions. So if it's a community that's been operating during this, is what's been going well during this time, right? Are there things that we can be learning that will help us move forward in a different way? What's not going well? What would you change? What would you keep? A lot of times what we do is we make assumptions. And when we don't ask people, and not just the elders or the residents, but team members, the answers aren't in one leader's head. Like, it is impossible that one person has all the answers right now. So I think expanding the voices and making sure they're representative of the people we're supporting is absolutely critical.
And what I just heard was really not just looking at the issues, but looking at the opportunities that this has presented to, and this is going to apply to many different, communities and industries. But if we only focus on the problems, we'll be blind to the opportunities.
Right.
And I heard you say this earlier, but engaging our elderly and seniors in this discussion and this thinking, because they have way more experience than most of the rest of us.
Yes.
And to miss out on that opportunity, to me, would just be a shame.
Absolutely.
It would be, we would miss the boat.
There is going to be a pull, and there is, where people want to go back to the old normal. We don't want to go back to the old normal.
No.
And let's look at what the new normal is. What are we going to learn? How will we do better? We work with an organization that says, during this time, things keep changing and changing and changing. It's not a new normal, it's a next normal, right? And then you learn from that, and then you adjust and you create the next normal. And that's really continuous quality improvement, right? Is what are we
Absolutely.
learning, knowing you're going to make mistakes right now, and being willing to look at what's happened and adjust to move forward for a better future.
That's key in bringing strong people in to lead this, because it's constant change and it's going to be for a long, long time. And shame on us if we set on our laurels and think we're there.
Yes.
You know, I think that we need to, and that's happened in the past. I think we've gotten to a spot where we've gotten maybe a little complacent in many industries, but in this one, and thought it was really working well. And this is a test in some respects to see just where the holes were.
Yes.
And so thank you for that. Thank you very much. And again, I can't tell you how much I and folks listening today appreciate you taking your time to come and share your perspectives and your ideas. And I'm looking forward to more of this in the future. Also, it's been really nice. We've worked together for a long time, and it's nice to be working with you again. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate that and how much I'm enjoying it. So,
well, thank you to Pinkard and to you for leading this really important discussion that needs to happen.
I just want to thank everyone who is listening in and attending today for taking the time to listen to this and gain additional perspective and insights, and also to engage in future discussions, because there will be more of these interviews and talks, as I said before, and really would invite you to watch the progress of the senior think tank as we lead change and improvement in senior living into the future. And please, please feel free. In fact, I encourage you to go online at pinkardcc.com and offer us your advice and your opinions, commentary. We're going to need it all, because all that information and those ideas are invaluable in leading this significant change for the betterment of our senior lives. Thank you.